Does anyone care when you are in pain? Does God care? Are we alone in our suffering? One of the most devastating aspects of pain and suffering is the isolation, feeling alone, feeling like no one is out there. When you're weeping, when a child is crying, that feeling, is anyone else crying with me? And above all, is God crying? This is a critical question in life because we're all going to go through difficult times. We'll all have setbacks, we'll have losses. The question is, when you're in that situation, are you all alone? And we want to know, where is God when I cry? Please join me. We're now in difficult times. Middle East at the brink of war, threats, uncertainty. We want to know, is God with us? So please join me as we discuss, does God cry? Hi, Simon Jacobson here, and we will be speaking about a painful but important topic. Does God cry? This program is dedicated in honor of Lydia Bell. Does God cry? Does God cry with us? It's one thing when we're going through positive experiences, joyous, happy celebrations. Then we usually don't think much about who's there with us. We'd love to have others participate in our celebrations, but we don't feel that type of desperation or need. But when we're alone and isolated in our pain, that's when it becomes very acute and very pronounced. That big question, are we all alone? Are we all alone in our suffering? And that's where you'll hear questions, where is God? Why is he not there when I need him most? Does God cry? Does he cry with me? Does he cry with us? And it's not just an academic question, theoretical, but does he give me power and strength and courage to get through the more challenging times in life? Because one of the most devastating things when it comes to pain and suffering, in addition to the obvious anguish of the experience, is the isolation, the loneliness, sitting alone. Does anyone care? Does anyone want to be with me? Who wants to be with someone that's in a miserable situation? And it's not that we focus so much on that question, but it is a very isolating experience. And many of us, therefore, retreat. We recoil in a fetal position, physically or figuratively, because that's what fear does, that's what pain does. That's why it's such an important question. So we find in the verses, in biblical verses, expressions like, I am with you in your suffering. I weep with you. We weep together. in the book of Jeremiah, in the book of Psalms. We have references like that. Now, obviously, the philosophers will immediately remind us that God is beyond human. You cannot apply anthropomorphism to God. God doesn't get angry. God doesn't have the same thing as human feelings. God is the creator. He's immortal, immutable, unchanging. And that's definitely the case when you talk about it philosophically. But there's another aspect to the whole picture. Who put all this in place? It is God that created us, and created us as humans with feelings and emotions. Yes, emotions of joy and gladness and happiness, love, beauty, compassion, virtue, empathy. The list goes on. But he also created us with other feelings. We feel sad at times. When we have a loss, we cry. And that's the way it was meant to be. It's not a weakness. It's the way the human being was created. And being that we were created in the divine image, so there we have the question, does the divine image also cry? So of course there are the answers, again, the philosophical, theological answers that explain that God is beyond having an image, but he chose to manifest part of his godliness, part of his divine energy in what the Kabbalists would call the 10 divine attributes, the Sfirot, including feelings. So though he's beyond feelings, but he manifests part of him. An expression of him manifests in ways that we can relate to, and he can relate to us. You have the verse in the book of Genesis, where the cries from the wicked city of Sodom are reaching and piercing heaven, and God says, let us descend below to see with our own eyes where this cry is coming from. The cry of anguish, the cry of pain, of distress, of people suffering at the hands of others. We see today atrocities, innocent children, innocent people. So does God come down to see? And why does he have to come down? Why can't he see it from up there? Or the better put, is he up there and not down here? He's here all the time. God is. So the Hasidic masters explain this at length, that there's different levels of divine manifestation. That obviously divine unity permeates everything all the time. Is all pervasive, is omnipresent. But the question is, how much does he identify with us? Does he relate? Does he engage? And that's the point when it says he comes down, not physically comes down, but engages on our terms. That we can relate to it. Now you can have a person who, for example, may care, but they don't show any empathy, and therefore you don't feel the connection. Does God show empathy? Does he manifest in empathy? These are critical questions, again, not from a theological point of view, from a practical point of view. Because if you look at all systems of healing and recovery, take the 12 steps. So I've come to discover that I cannot do it alone, that I need to have a higher power. I'm just paraphrasing. The idea that we need strength because, to use the Talmudic expression, a person bound up in fetters, a person in fetters cannot free themselves. When you're tied up, when you're in a pit, you can't free yourself. You need someone to throw you a life raft. And the same thing is with the divine, to realize that you're not alone in your pain, that God cares, and his caring helps you get through it. You know, there's that classic greeting card, or I'm not sure what you call it, anecdote. You see somebody walking, footsteps in the sand, 2 sets of footsteps, he's walking with someone with him. And this is the story of someone's life. And then when it comes to the more painful times in life, you only see 1 set of steps. And God says to the person, I've walked side by side with you through your whole life. I've always been with you, always accompanying you, always empowering you. He says, so where were you in all those moments of pain? I only see 1 set of footsteps. Why did you abandon me? And God responds, because I was carrying you then. So it's only one set of footsteps. I was lifting you up on my wings. So what that means is that God is always there with us. We just don't feel it. That's part of the difficulty of dealing with challenges and pain. You don't feel the strength, but it doesn't mean it's not there. So that's why this is so relevant, because it really affects how to deal with the challenges in life. Now, some deal with it through denial, escapism, self-medicating, all kinds of form of relief, physical or psychological, to escape the situation. But we're talking about not escaping, but like they say, the only way out is through to becoming stronger. That which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. When we read in the Bible where it says that the Jewish people were in exile in Egypt, in slavery, terrible Holocaust, the more they were afflicted, the more they thrived, the more they blossomed, the more they grew, flourished. That is where the tears of God come into play. So it's not just whether God is feeling our pain, but is empowering us. And that's why it's so critical that we understand that there is a relationship with the divine, especially in difficult times. When God appears to Moses, the Bible tells us, the first time, in a burning bush. But it wasn't just a bush, it was a thorn bush. And Moses saw this sight and was perplexed, because there were no branches, there were no leaves, there was nothing to burn. It says it was burning, but the sneh, the thorn bush, was not being consumed. A fire was burning, it was not being consumed. So why did he appear in a thorn bush? God. And the answer is a very powerful answer. You're appearing to Moses, appear in an apple tree, in a beautiful pasture. No, because God was anticipating the big question. Oh, you appear to me in beauty. How about do you appear to me in ugliness? You appear to me in times of joy. What about in times of pain and loss and when we're feeling abandoned? Because Moses was about to be told to go to the Jewish people who were in terrible distress and said, and tell them that God is going to redeem them. And the people, of course, would say, where is this God that you're talking about? We don't see him. Why is he not here with us in our pain? Look at our suffering. You think of history, people, innocent, children, being burned alive, being cremated, being gassed, being persecuted. Where's God? So God says to Moses, I'm not appearing to you in beauty, I'm appearing to you in a thorn bush to show you that I'm with you in your pain. Now, of course, the big $1 million question is, so why not just eliminate the pain? That deserves its own discussion. And I don't even know if we have an answer to that. That's part of the mysteries of life and death, of pain and suffering, of joy and happiness, of love and loss. But what we do know is that we may not have an answer to why bad things happen to good people. But what to do about it, that we do have an answer. Because in that thorn bush of your life, in the pain and suffering, even in the moments of deep isolation, where it seems hopeless, there is a divine spark, because God does cry. You'll say, well, how does it help me if he cries? I'm a child that was hurt by a parent, abused by someone, violated. How is it helping me that God cries? Because God is giving you power through those tears. Now, I'm not here to prove the case. You'll say, how do I know? How do we know? Where was God during the Holocaust? Where was God on October 7th? Where was God in our personal Holocausts, losses, senseless deaths, suffering, right now as we speak? I don't have an answer. Again, why? But there's no question that our only option, and I'm not saying this with a scientific empirical type of approach, because I ask you to think of the alternative. Our only option is to say that with every challenge we have, we're also given strength. And yes, God's tears, crying with us, is an experience that only a person who has shed such tears can experience. It's a sacred moment where you can stand completely naked before God. It's completely naked because you are vulnerable, and knowing that you have a special place. This is not a justification. This is not a consolation. It's not a comfort. It's a reality. Those that have suffered, that have gone through it, know exactly what we're talking about here. So when I visit people who have suffered, go on a call, a shiva call, or someone who needs comfort, I never go with answers. I don't have answers. I go with that statement. We cry together. I don't have answers for you, but we can cry together. And God cries with us. And you say, well, why does he have to cry? Let him not do it. Let him prevent the whole thing in the first place. I don't have an answer to that, but he still cries. And it's extremely important to know that. There's something that happens when someone cries with you, and especially a divine cry. And what's the alternative? What's the alternative? The other alternative is that we're all alone. It's one big accident. And we just have to get through it. And some will say there's no justice altogether. So then why are you crying in the first place? The fact is, the very cry means there's something that's lacking, something you feel is wrong, something unjust about it. That's a healthy thing. It would be like someone, God forbid, who has terrible accident, and they don't feel any pain. They say, I have no pain, because the nerves have been severed. That's not a good sign. You want to feel the pain. Not because we like pain, but because the pain reminds us that we're alive. The pain reminds us there's a problem. The pain reminds us that we can heal and we should heal. The pain will also motivate us to heal. That's what tears are about. The Kabbalists say that tears bathe the soul. It's a salve. It's a soothing element. It's like going into the warm waters. Is it comfortable? Of course not. But nevertheless, it's soothing. And God's tears soothe as well. So it's not just that God counts our tears, as the Psalm says, but also cries with us. I speak from my heart right now because it's not coming necessarily from a purely logical, rational place. It's not irrational. I call it super rational. There's something deeply comforting knowing that we're not alone in this world. Not just that we have loved ones, family, friends, children, grandchildren, but to also know that there's some higher presence that is with you at all times. In times of joy, for sure, and we shouldn't take that for granted, but also in times of distress. To know that God does indeed cry. Does he cry with tears like our tears? Does that matter? The main thing is that he identifies with us, engages. And where do you see it? You see it in the strength that you gain. You see it in the growth that emerges. And you recognize it by appreciating the journey. I don't remember where I saw it, but I saw a scene once. Someone, I think children had lost a parent at a young age. Tragic. I think their uncle or friend came by and was on a farm. They went outside. Talk about an apple tree. There was an apple tree, and there was an apple on the ground that had fallen, that already rotted. And it was you could see it was halfway being absorbed by the earth. And he says to the children, I just remember it left that impression. Everything is on its way to another place. Nothing is static. You see, we sometimes get caught in that trap of the here and now. I'm here, and there's no tomorrow, no yesterday. Instant gratification, fast food society. Everything is on its way to somewhere else. The apple was once on that tree, juicy, alive. Now it's rotting, it's deteriorating. But it's on its way to becoming part of earth, which will absorb its nutrients and its seeds, and very likely give birth to another tree. We just don't see it right now. We just see the process. So understanding things are a process, and understanding that the tears of God, just as the psalm writes, you sow in tears, those that sow in tears will reap in joy. The tears of God are in your tears. And they are like raindrops that will give birth to greater things. And the birthing will be the best proof that there were those tears there. So it empowers us to understand that we're not just crying for the past. We're not just weeping over loss. It's all part of a transition, which we weep for, because we have lost something. But ultimately it will turn into something other, something greater. And that's when you see the results, the fruits of those tears. There's something profoundly comforting about it. Share a story. It was years ago, Meaningful Life Center. First we got involved with it informally, then more formally. Began organizing this, we'll call it bizarre if you wish, definitely out of the ordinary weekend retreat. But it wasn't a regular weekend retreat, it was a camping retreat. We actually found camping grounds. And people tented, real tents, in the rain, braving the elements. We had some professionals building a central tent. We had an outdoor caterer. But over the weekend, it was not a 5-star hotel, but it was transformative. There's something about being vulnerable with others and exposed to the elements that creates a very deep unity. You don't hide behind structures, hide in your room. Until this day, I still hear about it. But now, over a few years, we had some experience. We had people who were real professional campers, help people pitch their tents. Some people were very shocked by the experience. They didn't know what they're getting into. I mean, obviously, we gave everybody preparations, and we had people helping, as I said. And, if you know how to pitch a tent, even with rain and so on, you could be pretty warm and comfortable. But you have to be ready to adjust. But we had a good team, and I said, if there's anyone that has one of the guests having any issues, we had a team that knew how to solve problems. Someone couldn't pitch their tent, they couldn't find food, they're lacking some resources, lacking some supplies. We were there for them. Okay, good. We had a hierarchy type of thing, that if there's a problem, you deal with it. If you can't deal with it, give it to a superior. And at the end of the day, if there's no one else, send them to me. So there's this one woman that came from New York City. And as soon as she arrived, we saw there was a problem. Nothing was good enough. Oh, I didn't know it's camping. I didn't bring this, I didn't bring that. And where's the food? We tried to be as kind as possible and help her. But all the people that were trying to help, she just got angrier at. Finally it got to me, so I went over to speak with her. It was already Friday evening. I didn't know who she was, but we started the conversation. I saw very, very angry. I said, look, you're here. We all care about each other. We're all in this together. We're here to do whatever it takes. If you would like to eat right now, we'll bring you food to your tent. And we had good food, everything. She was extremely angry. I saw there was something more going on. It wasn't us. But the situation that was vulnerable exacerbated whatever was bothering her. So I was as kind as I could. I said, we'll bring something to you. She said, no, I'm not happy, and that's that. I'm upset at you, upset at everybody. Okay, I wasn't happy to hear that, but we went on. We had a few hundred people. It was a beautiful evening. We were singing. But I thought about her, but you can only do what you can do. The next morning, the night was actually raining, so it made it even more uncomfortable. But the next morning, the sun was shining. It was a beautiful morning, at a camping setting. So it was like very fresh and clean. So we had the morning services, the Shabbat services. And I gave a talk before the service, or before the final service, after the Torah reading. And I saw that she appeared, and she was standing at the edge of the central tent, listening. And briefly, what I said was, I said, in life, we all will go through challenging times. And those times, we should be there for each other to comfort each other. This was the week, it's called Shabbos Nachmu, the Shabbos of comfort. But here's the question. After the destruction of the temple, God sent the prophet to comfort the Jewish people. And the Jews said to God, or said to the prophet, I should say, why is God, he's the one that caused us to suffer. Why is he sending a messenger to comfort us? The one that caused us to suffer should comfort us himself. And the messengers returned to God and gave him the message. And God said, they're right, I will comfort them. And then the continuation series of events, God ultimately comes and comforts them. So I asked the question, what God couldn't understand that on his own? He needed the people to say that. Why did he send a messenger? And my response was, because God wanted to empower humans to comfort each other. That God can comfort us, of course, the one that takes gives. It's God. But he wanted to also give us the ability to comfort each other. That's why he sent messengers. That's why we visit the sick. That's why we go and console people. You could say, 1 second, we're all mortals. How could one mortal console another? We're all in the same boat. We were given the power. We have the ability to comfort each other. Anyway, I elaborated a bit more. After I finished, a woman comes over to me. The one that was the night before was extremely aggravated. With tears in her eyes, she says to me, you've comforted me. Let me tell you what happened. A year ago today, my young son, an 18-year-old boy, died from an aneurysm. A year ago. Today is his first yard site. You can imagine how I felt. I came to this weekend because I felt maybe some escape, something. But I was extremely angry, extremely upset. Not at any of you. You've only been wonderful. And I'm glad you didn't take it personally. But it was just me. And then you say these words, and you didn't even know what happened with me. And I want to tell you, you did comfort me. We do have the power to comfort each other. And I said to her, do you think when God sent the messenger, it was just the messenger comforting? It was God giving the power, saying, I cry with you, but sometimes I send a messenger. Sometimes I come myself. This is a critical message in our times. We are not alone. We should not be afraid, because we have the power to be connected to something greater than ourselves, that in turn empowers us and gives us encouragement. And that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not the light of the oncoming train, a light of hope. So we need to have that conviction, that commitment to see it through. I always share the example of the Baal Shem Tov with the swindling staircase. Called in Yiddish, it's called Schwindeltreppe. It's called swindling. What's swindling? Because a spiral staircase swindles you into thinking that you're not reaching your destination. You know, a direct staircase, it may be many steps, but you see the destination at some point. A spiral staircase, you keep making turns, and your back is faced to the destination. So right before you reach the apex, your back is turned. You may say to yourself, no progress, I've reached nowhere. All my efforts, I'm still with my back to, I don't see the destination. And sometimes you get stuck right there. No, see it through. One more turn, and you're all the way to the top. That's life. Life is twists and turns. It's not a straight line. And in those twists and turns, there's the power that we get, the divine power in our divine image, and then also the power even when there's tears. So God's tears actually have tremendous empowering resources. And especially in these times, not just that we're in the 9 days, which is the saddest period in the Jewish calendar, but you see the events, the threats from Iran, its proxies, innocent people under threat. And you ask yourself, why? What did they do? Well, it's not the first time in history. That doesn't comfort us. What comforts us is that we know that we have this strength and we will prevail. And good people will see it through. And all of us have to know not to be afraid. We have to be prudent. We have to prepare ourselves, do whatever it takes to defend ourselves or to go on the offense when necessary, which sometimes the best defense is offense. But to know in our hearts and souls that we have higher strength, we have divine strength. And in our tears as well, in our cries, is also the tears of God. And those tears will give birth to beautiful fruit and permanent fruit, to the point where the prophet says there will be, wipe off your tears, your tears will be wiped off your face. God will wipe off the tears from all face. There will be no more pain and suffering, only joy and celebration. Amen. This has been Simon Jacobson. MeaningfulLife.com is our website where you can find this and many other programs. Please subscribe to our offerings, to our YouTube channel. Check out our website, many different and a full array of materials, videos, text, audio, you name it, that addresses the entire spectrum of life. And please share your thoughts, and please share this with others. I'd love to hear your feedback, your comments, your suggestions. Be blessed and be well.
This program is brought to you by the Meaningful Life Center. Please help us continue our programs. Make even a small contribution at meaningfullife.com/donate.